Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today I've got for you three mistakes that a lot of anglers make anytime they're fishing the good old Texas rig like this guy right here. It's been around for years now. It catches tons and tons of fish. One of the best baits we have, especially for fishing in thick cover and making your presentation weedless. It just catches fish. You can throw a Texas rig pretty much anywhere with basically any soft plastic bait, from a paddle tail swim bait to a creature style bait to a craw. It doesn't matter. Texas rigs are phenomenal if you're fishing with soft plastics. Now, having said that, there are some mistakes that anglers make, and I've got for you three mistakes that anglers make that if you can correct this, you're going to catch more fish. No doubt about it. Three simple mistakes that anglers are making that we're going to try to help people correct. Now, before I share those with you, I do want to remind you that I do some lake breakdowns with fishthemoment.com. So if you're looking for a little bit of help on your local lakes, maybe some smallmouth luck or help, maybe some largemouth help, check out the lakes that I've done lake breakdowns for with fishthemoment.com. I'll put a link in the video description to that. Also, if you're looking to support the channel and looking to purchase tackle, please use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link. I'll put that in the video description, and they're offering 20% off for their Black Friday sale starting already through the month of November. So it's a good time to stock up on some of your tackle at reduced rates. All right, so maybe you're looking to purchase some Texas rig tackle, some whether it's some tungsten weights or the hooks or the soft plastics. These are some things that you can do to really improve your Texas rig fishing. Now, the first has to do with the weight. In this case, I've got here a pegged tungsten weight. This is a 1 ounce weight. I was using this for flipping heavier grass, punching some milfoil basically. And one thing that a lot of people don't recognize is how important it is to determine whether your weight should be pegged or unpegged, meaning flowing freely up and down your line. Now, generally, if you ask me on this, there's only one time you should be using a pegged bullet weight, and that is when you're fishing really heavy cover and you're going to run into issue where your weight will separate from the bait, and that creates issues for you where you're not being efficient and effective with your presentation. So if I'm fishing really heavy cover, so maybe I'm pitching into really thick bushes, maybe I'm flipping into really heavy milfoil or punching through hydrilla, that type of thing. If your weight separates, what's going to happen is the weight's going to get hung up, your bait's going to get hung up, and it just is not an efficient, effective technique. Now, if you're not fishing really, really heavy cover, I think you're much better off going with an unpegged weight. I would say I fish an unpegged weight 75% of the time. And the reason for that is when your weight separates, so when it slides up here, your bait is moving much more naturally. Your weight will separate when you pull the line up. At that point, the weight will slide back to the lure itself, and you'll pull it. And the bait, when it separates again, you almost get like a mini Carolina rig, a free rig presentation. It's a much more natural presentation, and not only does that help entice the fish into biting more, it really gives you better hookups, because when that fish comes to suck that bait in, they're not even sucking the weight at that point. They're just pulling the bait and the line into their mouth. Generally, you get much better hookups. The last reason it's really important not to use a pegged bullet weight is simply you lose less fish. So when that weight separates from the fish, you don't have this weight helping that fish to get leverage on the bait. So when you're fishing a pegged weight, if you've got that fish hooked and he's jumping with it, that weight's flopping around. It really helps dislodge that hook. If you're fishing unpegged and that fish jumping around, that weight has no leverage that that fish can use to shake the hook. So it's very important to understand when to use a pegged weight and an unpegged weight. Generally speaking, if I can fish an unpegged weight, I think that's much better for your Texas rigs. I'll fish the pegged weight in really heavy cover. Now, if I am fishing a pegged weight like this, where my weight does not move freely on my line, I've got a really important tip for you. Do not slide your weight all the way down so that it's snug with your bait. When I mean snug is when you slide that all the way down and your pegget is going to hold the bait tight against the hook eye. That's going to lead to potentially two issues. One, you could be putting pressure on your knot. So in this case, you can see if I slide that weight all the way down and I'm holding it, you can see my bait is just almost in line with the weight. So there's pressure on my knot, and that can lead to an issue where your knot breaks and you lose the fish. But more importantly, the reason I do not like to slide my weight all the way down to the hook is because you get a unnatural presentation. So your bait is all in one. Your bait tends to move in line with the weight and it doesn't swing freely. So when I'm using a pegged weight, I always like to back it off just a little bit. Just, I mean, we're talking that's maybe a 16th of an inch. And what that does is it allows your bait to move freely. So if this falls to the bottom and the weight hits, your bait still is going to move. It also helps with your hookups. Again, like I was saying before, if your weight is tight, when that fish goes to suck that bait in, they have to suck the whole weight in. If you've slid your weight off just a little bit, they can suck just the bait itself in without even sucking the weight in. So you get much better hookups, you get much better hooking percentage. It makes a big difference in terms of generating bites because your bait is moving freely versus being basically one unit with the weight itself. And you're also not potentially damaging your knot. So it's important to not have it all the way down snug against the hook eye. And then the third thing, the third biggest mistake that I see a lot of anglers make has to do with choosing the appropriate weight. A lot of times anglers are going to choose a mid-range weight, which in my opinion would be something like a 3/8 ounce or a 1/2 ounce weight. Those are great weights. They're probably the number one selling weights for bullet weight and fishing Texas rigs. In my experience, though, you're much better going off with a heavyweight or a lightweight. So a lighter weight would be like a 3/16 ounce or less, or a heavyweight would be like a 3/4 ounce or more. And the reason for that is those are the two, you're usually better off going with a lightweight or a heavyweight to entice the fish into biting more. So a slow fall, so if you have a 3/16 ounce weight or less, your bait's going to fall more natural. It's going to kind of glide. It's just going to look like it's more swimming in the water, and it stays in the strike zone a little bit longer. And that's a good way to entice fish to bite. If you go with a heavier Texas rig, say 3/4 ounce or heavier, that bait falls much faster. And because it falls really fast, you're now keying in on the fish's instincts to bite out a reaction. So if that bait falls fast, you may be out of the strike zone faster, but if there's a fish there that's not actively feeding, he's probably going to bite it just out of reaction because it's flying by their face. They have no idea what it is, but they're going to bite it because it's fast moving. If you go with a weight that's mid-range, your 3/8 ounce, your 1/2 ounce, you kind of take away from both of those. It's too heavy to fall natural and have a little bit more motion on the fall, but it's not heavy enough to fall so fast where it's really going to generate those reaction strikes. So in my opinion, you start with a light one or you start with a heavy one and then adjust from there if you're not getting bites. Definitely, there's still times and places where 3/8 ounce and 1/2 ounce come into play. A lot of times it also varies on the bait you're using. With a 4-inch pit boss like this, a 3/16 ounce is pretty light. If I switch to a 3-inch pit boss, I may want to adjust my weight to get a slower fall or a faster fall. So your bait choice does come into play when you're choosing which weight to get a fast or a slow fall. But it's just important for the angler to recognize what's going to generate those strikes. And generally speaking, you're better off with a slow fall or a really fast fall, not that in-between fall. So those are 3 really good tips for you that I think help correct some of the mistakes I see anglers making on a daily basis. I know they've worked great for me over the years, and hopefully you can apply them and catch some fish as well. So if you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, we'll have a new video coming out tomorrow for you.